Today's video is going to be about cylinder head porting, specifically factory style cast iron cylinder heads from, well, the classic car eras. I have filled the intake port with chalk so that you can have some high contrast here. With some simple hand tools, it is possible to do cylinder head porting. Now, this is difficult work. I have done a great deal of investigation to understand where the water jackets are inside of this casting, how thick the metal is, and to understand the flow characteristics of the geometry of these ports, of these, the size of these valves, where restrictions are, where it is worth putting time into and where it is not, because you could put countless hours of work into this head and really not make it much better if you don't know how to. You could actually just ruin it if you don't know how to direct your time and energy. So I'm going to show you for this slant 6 head, but it might be very interesting and useful in your path to learning how to do porting work on other types of cylinder heads. Now, this cylinder head has good valve seats. We're going to replace the exhaust valves, but generally it's in good condition. Someone has put new valve guides in at some point in its life. A 3-angle valve job would be a good start. Some of the castings of these old cylinder heads are very poor quality. There may be large obstructions, stalactites, casting flaws. You won't find, unless you disassemble it and really visually take some time to look at each port and each seat. Because who wants to do extra work for no gain or potentially even ruin their cylinder head? So you're going to have to do research on the specific type of cylinder head you're working on in other places if it's not a slant 6, but you still may learn a lot just by watching what I can do with some pretty simple tools in a couple of hours here in my garage. I hope you enjoy the video. I want to identify some important things, terminology. The shiny part between the tip here and the tip here is the apparent valve seat. This is the location where the valve makes contact with the cylinder head when it's closed. This white, all this white is in the port. You can see a little bit, there's a little bit of an undercut here, right? And then there's all of this taper between the innermost part of the seat till we get into the port. And this is, right here, this is bad. It's a sharp, so a 3-angle valve job might take care of some of this, but honestly there's this little ridge here. It's not a lot. There's not as much of it here. There is none over here. It just drops off. It goes from the innermost part of the valve seat and it slowly tapers in, and between these two cylinders, between here and here, there is water. So you do not want to grind into this face. And then there is water out here, but as you come up towards the seat, it tapers in. Okay, and then this is all solid. Now, you do not want to undercut the seating portion of it, because you need, you want that meat there, especially not so much on the intake, but on the exhaust. You cannot undercut these seats because you will have heating problems. And so you see, there's not really much to take out there, but there is a little bit of a rough spot there. Does not have aftermarket hardened seats. It has induction hardened seats, meaning it is cast iron, and they used electricity to heat the seating area to a high temperature that will that's more resistant, that's hardened compared to the rest of this. So as you get closer to this seating part, you'll feel the cast iron is a little harder, but you do not want to grind into that because that's your sealing surface. And you should err on the side of caution when you're grinding. Give yourself a little bit of room. You're not going to catch 100 horsepower by being, an extra millimeter closer to this edge. But right here, you don't even have to remove a lot of material, but if you just take this ridge off and give it a radius instead of a ridge, you're going to reduce turbulence in your intake flow. As it comes in, it's going to just whoosh, go in there. Reducing turbulence in your exhaust is going to prevent the cylinder head from absorbing as much heat as exhaust flows. And there's an area right here where there's a good amount of material that could be radiused. Okay, I think the reflection sort of gives it away a little bit there. That between the apparent valve seat to the edge, there's a lot of material there, not to cut out, but to radius with. But giving it smooth flow as it pushes out here and sucks in here, giving it a nice radius in these areas is really worth a little bit of time. Now, deep up in the port pocket, someone already did a little bit of work around these new valve guides. Normally it would be kind of square and there'd be sort of sharp edges, and you can work on those a little bit, but they're hard to get at, and I don't believe that they are going to be the biggest part of increasing flow, especially not on this particular engine. I guess if you want to, mill down the sides of your valve guides, there are people who do it, but for your time and energy, I really believe that this monster of a ridge right here is where you want to give it a nice radius. And there's a little one on this side, nice radius. There is a little one right here, nice radius. There is not much to take out right there. Your valve seat ends right here, and then it just goes straight into the port. You're not going to get anything out of that. It's not the same on this side as it is further down the cylinder head. There's some different looks because it's impossible to get high precision, super high precision port alignment with a cast iron head. This is poured metal into a sand casting. So some of the alignments, some of the areas are going to be different from port to port to port. So you really want to take time with your valves removed and really clean it up and get a good look at where a little bit of material can be rounded over. Cutting, a thousandth or something off of this inner wall of this port is, in my mind, not going to give you tremendous amounts of flow. If you want lots more flow, you want to look at, some type of forced induction. But, with the material that's here, taking this ridge off is everything that is just like, this is just handed to you. They didn't do this from the factory because they just sent it. They just, they cut these seats in, they induction hardened them, and then they sent it. Nobody was going in here with a little piece of sandpaper or a burr. It's going to be hard to compare apples to apples because as I work, this is going to get clean, and shiny, like cleaned cast iron. But I think that this black between the apparent seat and the port, that's really where you're going to see a major
gain of a couple percent. You're not going to get 100 horsepower out of a port job on an old engine, but you will get whatever there is to be had right here. This is the place to find it. Maybe port matching, but I have some thoughts on port matching that other people may not agree with. I don't think it's a thing you shouldn't consider, but I think that you should not just do it out of habit. You should not blindly port match. If it's already the same size, just leave it. But you got to look. You got to use your brain. I'll be talking about porting cast iron cylinder head
from a factory-produced, mass-produced 225 slant 6 engine. There's lots of work that can be done to improve this cylinder head because performance was taking a backseat to production, which made sense. This was the economy engine. But we can extract greater volumetric efficiency from this engine by cleaning up factory casting defects. They were things that were known to be not perfect, but they were good enough. And well, we're going to invest some time and energy so that this car gives us better performance for the rest of its life.
Alright, I have a significant portion of the porting done, and when I go left to right, you got to understand that at the center of this particular head, it's a mirror image. Those three are facing one way, those three are facing the other way. So to show you apples to apples, I got to show you here and here. So that's what I'm going to do as best as I possibly can. If you look at the transition from the port to the seat, right there, okay, that is ported as best as I can. And if you look at it here, that is factory with no modifications. That is one of the places where I think you can probably also see how much protruding casting there is below the seat. This side is cleaned up, widened out. This side is raw casting, and you can see the apparent valve seating. Once it's all cleaned up, it's just all going to be shiny. It may be lost in the translation. In the bottom of those bowls, I'm not really trying to do a lot of work, but you nick it with the, when you're getting the perfect angles, you start to nick in the bottoms there, and it doesn't hurt it. I'm not grinding away in the ports really because, well, this one it's the most, you can see it the most. I think there was probably some trash in there that I didn't like. But this one's fine, and there's really not a lot of widening to be gained out of messing with that, and then you're just risking popping through into water jacket. So several of them are done, and we're just working around back and forth. My neck, it wears out your neck, I'll tell you that. But boy, it's looking good. We got our vacuum. You always just stuff the vacuum in the port so it sucks the stuff. I'm using this carbide burr. I haven't even switched to a different burr this whole time. It's working really good. I got a light set up. I slide it around as I go. I'm wearing all kinds of safety equipment so I don't get anything in my eyes. This is the most critical thing I've ever done as far as protecting my eyes, because it's just really sketchy. So a couple hours of grinding. It's loud. It's tedious. It requires precision. If you nick those seats, I got one nick in a seat right there. This whole time I nicked a seat one time. That will come out with a when I lap the seats. Not too hard, but you don't want to get a lot of those, and you sure as heck don't want to widen this out. And you notice that I go straight down from the seat. I do not undercut the seat. Now, intakes, it's not quite as important, but the exhausts, it's critical. Do not undercut your exhaust seats. They will get too hot. You need that cooling that you get from the entire seat. So back to work.
It is possible to extract a whole lot more performance out of a cylinder head, and since we don't have a flow bench, I cannot quantify it for you, but I know that resistance to flow is going to reduce your volumetric efficiency.
We're getting into some detail work, but see right here, it's consistently inconsistent. The face cut, here's the apparent valve seat, and then there's a face cut. It comes out, but then there's a lip. And this lip is here. This lip is, it's here. It's here. There's the traditional shrouding that you want to look for over in here and over in here, right?
This is very light work. I'm going to use a little bitty Dremel tool. Well, I am using a little bitty Dremel tool. I'm using a wheel like this so I can kind of just gently... Okay, that's moving around too much. But let me show you where I've gotten with it. It's much more apparent out on number 1 and number 6. And then number 2, it's not as bad, but there's still a little bit there. These are exhaust valves. The intakes are not the same. And then here's number 3. Number 3 and number 4, honestly, don't really need a bunch of work. They're mirror image, so this is exhaust, this is exhaust. But I've taken the time to face them out. So from the top of the seat, blending out into the bowl. I don't want to change the combustion chamber. It's already big enough. But then we did it here, and we did it here. And that darkness, it doesn't look like I did enough, but it's already faced properly, and there was a nick right there that I've now smoothed out, radiused, just so that there's no interruption from airflow going out when the exhaust valve opens. And I think that's maybe a finer point. Probably not a ton of CFMs, but you know, flow is flow. And then, like I said, number 1 and the number 6 are really bad. There's just this egregious edge there. So even the tiny Dremel, which I don't usually like to use for porting because it's just very light duty, it does a really good job. And you gotta, you know, brace your hand and use just your wrist. Use both hands and use your wrists, because you don't want to cut that seat. You don't want to nick that seat. So just getting rid of this, very fine point, and clean it up. And it's not hard. It doesn't take a lot of time or a lot of effort. It's right out in front of you on the table. So anyways, you could see how good my cuts on the unshrouding. Take out the shrouding on the valves. You can see how good that's turned out. I haven't done any port work per se, just shrouding. I would love to have hardened exhaust seats put in this head, because there is some recession. Those seats have been cut at least once in their life, I think. So they're kind of deep in there. But they're going to be good enough. It ran really good on the other motor, so it's only going to run better from here. The manufacturing processes have improved considerably. I'm told that the Magnum Dodge engines that were made after 1993 are much better than the early V8 small block Mopar heads. So it may be earlier engines that are more worth porting, but I believe that a good thorough inspection, well beyond what a machine shop is going to clean it up, take some measurements, maybe replace your valve guides, maybe even install hardened valve seats, which are all important steps in refurbishing a cylinder head. But porting is beyond that. It is about performance. And you're now looking at things that they never really looked at from the factory because they just didn't have time. So that people could buy cars at reasonable prices. If you want something like that now, go look in a catalog, and you're looking at thousands of dollars and beyond. Thousands of dollars and up for a good set of performance cylinder heads. So if you do learn to do something like this at home, or if you're just interested in what it's like to do this work, stay tuned. Porting gives you time to really see if you're working with a good piece. This obviously is a good one. I have done the porting and I'm ready for reassembly, and I took some video of the process of porting it so that you can see what goes into it. Cylinder head was designed in the 1950s, and the technology used to measure flow and that type of thing was, well, it was different. And then the manufacturing techniques was sand casting and machining. Well, they were fully capable of making high-performance racing heads at the time. This was a production engine. That means they hastily cast, quick and dirty machining, slap the valves in, and send them on their way so that they could make money and people could buy cars at an affordable price. If you find a good candidate with decent valve seats in it and decent valve guides in it, you can do some at-home machining to wake it up. This is specifically from a Slant 6. It is a 225 cubic inch Chrysler engine that would be found in A-body Chryslers, Dart, Demon, Duster, Barracudas. Lots and lots of pickup trucks up till 1987. The Slant 6 engines were used, so there's a wide application. But cast iron cylinder heads that were sand cast and roughly machined are present in engines from 1990 till the way back, the beginning, the dawn of automotive production. So, if you have an old car and you'd like to learn how to do porting, well, watch someone else do it first. Maybe you can avoid some of the mistakes or learn how to understand some of the techniques, some of the different things that we work for. And each individual engine or cylinder head is going to have different kinds of places where you're going to find the most gains for your time and energy. And that's going to be important because porting this head can take 4 to 8 hours easily, very easily, and it is loud and dirty work. It's also very dangerous to your eyes, so you want to minimize the amount of time that you have to work to get the maximum amount of gain. It is possible that someone's already done some work. A 3-angle valve job, something like that, would really wake up a factory-style cylinder head. So I hope that you find this informative. I apologize, it's really difficult to show sometimes, but I did my best to take the before and after, and you'll see that now.